Hola a todos, Michelle here with a video that I've created in regards to a question I got in the comment section of one of the videos that I created in regards to if I watch subtitles or not. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into the question. And the question is, without subtitles, how do you learn or look up words with a silent H? For example, hoy, hace, I. By listening only. What's the difference, or know the difference between words starting with a V or a B, since they sound the same? If you don't know anything about Spanish to start with, how did I learn this? And so I do want to start with that Dreaming Spanish is not my first introduction to acquiring the language. When I was in high school, many years ago, I did take Spanish in high school. And so when I get that beginner layer of foundation, I learned the alphabet, words like hoy and hace and I. They're pretty common, so I do know like the H is silent. And yes, I do agree that the V and the B in Spanish can sound very similar. So what happened over time, like even when I started with like super beginner and beginner videos, and I stopped using subtitles because I was reading too much. So I just focused on the listening. And as time progresses, I start to hear the differences in the V and the B. I can hear it. Also, just the way like the word is said, I can kind of detect like, oh, that's a V or a B. Also because my vocabulary is expanding, and so I know what that sounds like. And that's the great thing about Dreaming Spanish, in my opinion, is that they enunciate their words. So yeah, sometimes when I'm listening to native speakers speak, I think that's when I've had the biggest trouble in the past. Like, was that how do you spell that word? Is that a V or a B? Like, I don't know, because it sounds similar. But with the Dreaming Spanish videos, like with the super beginner and the beginner level, I start to gain that vocabulary. Even when I watch Peppa Pig, it just helped with the vocabulary. And very randomly, if I caught a word, then I would look it up. And then sometimes even like Google Translate will correct me like, oh no, that's not how you spell it. And so that's a way to learn. But I don't necessarily was looking up words constantly. For me, it was more like listening and being able to hear the word rather than know how to spell it. And so for me, it just takes me back into getting out of that, my own way of thinking like, oh wow, like when I wanted to like acquire the language and I was in high school, it was done in this classroom setting where there's a textbook and I got to read and I got to learn grammar to actually pick up on the language. And I forget that when I was born, I was already receiving input of English. And so I didn't start acquiring English when I got into school, whether like for me, it was like kindergarten. I had already picked up on the language. So when I got to kindergarten, yeah, the alphabet is taught. And so for me, it was like, but I already know how to comprehend most of the things that I've learned up to this point and speak. I haven't started with writing yet. And so it's amazing when I think about it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, duh, like, how come we're not just doing comprehensible input in school? Like, I wonder how much of a difference that would have made if it was just more input rather than me going through like the textbook and writing, because the class is still taught so much in English for obvious reasons, in terms of learning, like trying to acquire the language of Spanish, like taking the class and whatnot. So I even think about it like when, you know, a niece or a nephew was talking and they use the wrong tense when they're saying something. I correct them, but I also know that there's no pressure like, oh my gosh, you said that wrong. It's more like over time, things are going to come, you know, to them the same way I came, you know, in terms of like getting it right for myself. And so for me, it's just about trusting the process. And, you know, everybody's learning at a different pace. Our strengths are going to be different at different times during this journey as well. The main goal for me has been to be consistent. Just keep being consistent. Be consistent, be consistent. The silent letters are going to start to come. The spelling is going to start to come. I don't think there's like one way to do it. It's going to be like, you know, maybe we can all relate on certain aspects of it. But for the most part, you know, learning, there's so many ways that each of us learn. Like, you know, for instance, for me, like I learn differently than, you know, someone else. So my focus has been just continue to input. And yeah, now when I listen to videos at the intermediate level, like I hear more words, I can pick up on more sounds. When I listen to songs that they speak a little bit faster in Spanish and it's not necessarily like a slow song, then I'm starting to like, oh, I can hear that sentence. I can hear that word. And that's also mainly because I picked up on vocabulary too now at the same time. And just the repetition of all those words that I can hear it. It's like, okay, I know that's how it's spelled. I know like the H is silent. There's just so many things that I don't even realize that I'm picking up on that is happening like in the moment, which is really cool. So keep doing what you're doing. Just continue to put the time and the effort in and the consistency in. I feel like that's the most important part, and just continue to the process, because even times when I fall off and I get a little frustrated with myself, it's just like, that's just a reminder for me just to get back on and then, stick to it. And that's the only thing I can do is just continue to go. So I hope that answers your question. If you guys have any other questions, please let me know. Hey, and it's time to share like a micro win, a macro win, any win. How's your journey going? What are some resources that you can share with the group, the community? Because it's always helpful just to continue to learn what else is out there. All right, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.